Hi, you. It's me, Nicole Phoenix Star, and this is a Nick Star podcast. Well, I had a very solid plan of talking about Ozempic this week, but at the last minute, I have had a switch up in what I was going to talk about. I would talk about my thoughts on Ozempic perhaps next week or whenever it lines up. Anyways, I have been in such a fascinating little experience of late that feels really not surprising. um, and, as we're in a 9 year of completions, and I have started a lot of women off on the wellness program, which is all steeped in that 9 energy. And so therefore I'm not surprised by what's been happening in my own life. I have a pattern of overgiving and overdoing and overmothering, and it's a very kind of a slippery slope for me because, it's all such well-intentioned behavior and it's very kind and it's very helpful to others. Yet if I go too far, I end up in states of depletion, and as a consequence, I get feedback from my body, and I started getting some hormonal poking of late. Particularly the other day, I got a hormonal headache, which I haven't had for a really long time, and my skin started doing the old prickly thing where I started feeling like ants are crawling under my skin, which is a real sign that your hormones are out. And it is triggered by stress on the body. And when I go into that zone of over giving, over supporting, over helping, overdoing, over mothering, not just my own children, but people, it puts stress on my body, and it's kind of a place that you get to before you realize, except I was aware last weekend. I was in kind of this beast mode, and I was very aware of what I was doing, because we can have awareness and still ignore ourselves, which is, self-betrayal 101. And the mind can tell you that you're doing a very kind thing and all of this stuff. And it's just all conditioning and ultimately nonsense, because you aren't self-caring the self, and you aren't mothering the self, and you aren't doing all the things you do for everybody else. And, it's good and fine to do this when you've got adequate levels of progesterone. And you can just kind of force through, but when you're in perimenopause and menopause, you can't. And that's when the symptoms start flaring up, and the capacity isn't an endless, vessel of availability as it is when you're particularly in your 20s and 30s and early 40s sometimes. We aren't aware. We just think we're tired, but what is actually happening is we just don't have the progesterone that we used to have. Anyway, so I was very aware of what I was doing, and I just made a deal with myself that I would just finish these last few things, and then I would realign myself to the awareness that I was aware of. But I got stopped in my tracks as I usually do. And last year I was in the same pattern around the same time, and I had a picture frame that was glass fall off the wall, smash on my head, and I put my hand up to protect my face, and it sliced open my hand quite dramatically. Fortunately, clearly I wasn't at the level I was last year, but I cut myself with a brand new, extremely sharp knife, and I was rushing and I wasn't present, and I had taken myself for a small rest, and then I went out and did some shopping and picked up other people's shopping while I was out, and came back and then went into food prep for other people. And again, the sneaky mind thinks it's doing a service to others. And it would be if one was in a well-rested state. But when one is not, it is not. And I went to very quickly take the packaging off the cabbage and pricked it. And instead of it cutting it, the packaging, it sliced my thumb in a very convenient place where it's not too much of an issue, but it made a very big bang sound, which was the knife hitting my bone. And I looked at my hand and this blood gushed out, and I put a lot of pressure over where the cut was, and then I had this huge wave of nausea come on me. So I went and sat outside and held the pressure onto the wound, and I was trying to get a read of whether I need stitches and if I was going to have to go to the hospital on Sunday afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Because when I sliced my hand open, I got a really quick message of no, I didn't need to do that, although my hand was sliced up massively and I had glass shards in it. I went on a huge master healing journey and learnt a lot about wounds and healing and my body's capacity, especially when it's well nourished, on healing that. And I did quite extraordinarily and profoundly. Anyways, and I couldn't get a read on whether I needed to get stitches or not. I mean, clearly I did from a general perspective. But, and when I took the bandage off 2 days ago, I was like, yeah, that could have had stitches, but I didn't. Eventually, I decided that I was going to just heal it, and I could see all of the blood vessels and all the cells of my body kind of binding together and meshing and kind of sealing the wound off. And I'm only a few days out of that, but it's pretty good. And I have such impeccable trust in my body that I feel very happy and confident with not going to the hospital and the journey I'm on. But it was the very wake-up call I needed to not be aware of the awareness, but to actually address it. And I then sat in deep, deep, deep reflection of how I've been so busy of late and I haven't put myself as a priority as I usually do, and how the sneaky, slippery mind has lured me into an old pattern of overgiving and overcaring and not overcaring, that's not the right word. Just overing all the things, and how imperative it is to ensure that I am meeting all my needs first so that I am more available to others in a more efficient and effective way. Everyone's heard all this, and just as women, we forget it consistently, and especially as mothers and caregivers and a general species. Anyways, so this morning I went to visit an old friend, and we went to a cafe and had a coffee date, and I haven't seen her for so many years, like so many years, but have remained very connected on Facebook and online. So it didn't feel like that many years because we are in, semi-regular contact, and she's just been given a terminal diagnosis on her health after beating cancer a couple of years ago. And she said something to me that struck really hard, because she has been a nurse for most of her life and a caregiver, and has given so much of herself to so many people over the years. And she said, I know that me not caring for myself, this terminal diagnosis is a manifestation of that. I always thought I would have time, and I always thought I would get to myself eventually, and I didn't. And the years just went by. She's in her early 60s, and she was forced to address that, and she shared deeply all about that. And the fact that she shared that very specific insight with me at this time landed profoundly. And, I work with so many women, and this topic is such a common thread of, caring for others and caring for children and caring for aging parents and caring for this, that, and the other, whatever, the thing is in front of them, and not having enough self-care in there. And, we can self-care in so many different ways and do it for a big chunk of time, and then other things come along. Like it's a constant thing, and it shifts and changes as circumstances do, as life does. And yeah, look, I have had so many things pop up that this podcast would be hours and hours long if I told you all of the things that have been brought to my attention, in my awareness of late. And like last night, I took myself out on a solo date, and I took myself to dinner, and I went and watched Robbie Williams' Better Man movie, and there was all these pieces in that again were just like direct messages. Yeah, it's a whole other story. And I had this extraordinary shamanic dream the other night, which again was like, it took me a moment to kind of work out what the messaging was, because it was all in a storyline. And I was talking to a student on a call the other day, sharing a little bit about it, and it just dropped in what that was all about. aligned with everything that had happened with my thumb and everything that had been going on. And, it just sign after sign after sign after sign. And I am recognizing that this is happening here and now as I'm about to step into a huge, huge container, probably the most potent work that I've done to date. On the 1st of February, I have, as some of you may know, I've been doing a group-long container called Traditional Tantric Teachings for the last 5 years, and it has recently evolved where I'm starting a continuation of that as a new iteration and opening up for anyone that wants to join, because it's been a closed container for a while, for a couple of years. And essentially it is the study and practice of awakened realization state. And what that means is to fully, completely have an operating system of letting life live through you and not being at the mercy of one's conditioning. And essentially it's a group container, an online group container, and there's women already in it from various parts around the world. So it's a global group, and yeah, I'm going to start marketing that this week. And I realize that as that's coming to opening up, that this is, not surprising that all of this is happening for me, because I spend most of my time in an awakened realization state. I let life live through me. I follow the pull. I don't worry about anything. And one pattern that does sneak up on me is this pattern of over-servicing and over-mothering and leaving myself in a state of depletion. And it's the only thing that's kind of tripped me up over the last year, is that old patterning of mine. Because, yeah, I've been like in this non-dual reality for quite some time. And I'm super, super grateful that this awareness has come around now with the complete interjection of a knife injury in forcing me to address it. So I feel that over the next couple of weeks I will be ready for graduation on that piece, because I am diligent like that, and I am very, very ready to be whole in that slippery little pattern of mine. Anyways, so this is officially a call out to anyone who is interested in spending 12 months in a group of women in a global container that, feel as if they've been working on themselves for many years and feel like they, have managed to integrate most things and just really need an accountability to a practice and the aspiration to remain in that state and not slip in and out of suffering and not slip in and out of forgetfulness, because we do know. And it's just those moments where we slip out of, knowing we're an aspect of consciousness, having a human experience, and the illusion of worry and having to decide what to do next, and all of that is, amusing and cute, but we do get forgetful and kind of get in a loop of that. But it's the aspiration to actually, all of that knowledge that one does have, to get to an embodied place where one can live in the awakened realization state as a permanent reality. And that is the purpose of this container, is to work on this ultimately one teaching for a year, and to do that in a aligned space with others doing the same, and to have a level of accountability and a consistent practice, so those moments don't get forgetful and in those loops of falling into duality. And so it's an application process where we have a conversation to see if it's a fit, and you can either message me via my website or send me an email or reach out on Messenger or WhatsApp if you have my WhatsApp contact. But there's lots of options there, and all of that's on my website anyway, www.mikstar.com, Nikstarr, or just through Messenger on my Facebook, Nicole Phoenix Star. And I'm really fascinated to see where this goes. And I am so, so excited to be spending this year working primarily on the awakened realization state as the operating system of thy life. Feels like every moment and everything I've ever done has led to this work, and clearly it has. So that is all I have to share today, and reach out if you want to have a conversation about this, or share it with anyone that you feel may be looking for something like this. And love you. Bye.